And this one is all about machine to machine, the Internet of Things, a whole new development in telecommunications that is happening as we speak, and will basically be the next revolution in telecommunications. If we look at telecommunications over the last couple of decades or 50 years, then we see that the first thing that happened with telecommunications was that houses were connected. And most of you will remember there was at one stage just a single black telephone hanging on the wall, and that black telephone linked the, were linking basically premises, houses, businesses to the internet. The next thing, of course, what happened was many years later the mobile revolution, when the telephony went actually from houses to people. So no longer did you have to shout through the house, the telephone is for you, your telephone rang, and that was the mobile revolution. So in Australia we went from 8 million telephones hanging on walls to 25 million telephones in people's pockets. Now the next big transformation is the M2M, the machine to machine, where we suddenly will see literally hundreds of millions of devices linked to the telecommunications network. So on one side, of course, it's a great development for the telecommunications industry, because you suddenly have far more connectivity, which means far more activity and obviously far more money to be made. And at the same time, what you will start seeing is that people are going to be cut out of telecommunications. So in certain situations, that's what the word machine to machine says, certain devices will talk to each other and will either make a decision and do something, or give you information on which they will ask you to act and do certain things. So it will be quite a dramatic change in the whole situation of how telecommunications is working. What M2M is at the basis of is basically the transformation of our society and of our economy. I think we've reached a stage as a society whereby we no longer are able to solve some of our problems. If we look at the financial crisis, I mean, we're now 5 years on and we still haven't solved it. America is muddling along, Europe is muddling along, but nobody is really finding a real solution. If you look at the environmental problems, we now know that for at least 10, 20 years, and we're still struggling to actually come up with sustainable solutions. The looming healthcare problem. By 2040, 40% of our national income will have to be spent on healthcare if we continue it the way as we're continuing now. Totally unsustainable. If you look at the problems in education, and so you can go on. If you look at the problems that, you hear that regularly on the radio and television, that Harvey Norman, David Jones, they're all complaining about the changes that are happening and that they are unable to actually participate in them. Now, what the message basically is, if you come across all of that, you cannot solve these problems in any linear way. It's not throwing more money to all problems. It's not throwing more of the same ideas to those problems. You have to really start thinking differently. And that's where M2M comes in. Because what you will have to do, if you take, for example, look at two examples. Look at online shopping. And why are people online shopping? Not because it's 5 or 10% cheaper as David Jones. It's sometimes 50, 60, 70% cheaper. Yeah? So the enormous amount of money that people can save, but at the same time, these other companies in one way or another are still making money. So what the online economy is doing is taking cost out of the economy. Those online companies can take cost out of the economy that companies such as David Jones, Harvey Norman, Woolworths, etc., they can't do. So in order to actually start becoming effective in the modern economy, you will have to start taking cost out of it. Otherwise, you will be competed out of the market. Now, it's up to you as an organization to find how you have to do that. Another example is Skype. Skype has some 500 or 600 million people as customers, and they operate, I think, at 2%, but let's say at least 10% as the cost of operations is 90% cheaper than a Telstra, an Optus, a British Telecom, a France Telecom, a Verizon, etc. 90. Now, you can't compete with that. If you have an organization as Telstra, Optus, etc., and you have to compete with virtual communication providers such as Skype, VoIP, Facebook, Google, there's no way in the world that you can win unless you are also able to start taking costs out of your business models and start becoming competitive in that particular area. If you look at the bigger picture, then you actually start talking about smart businesses, you start talking about smart cities, smart countries, and things like that. Now, traditionally, how we solve problems is that we have a whole group of silos, all specialized in medical, in education, in this industry, in that industry, silos, silos, silos. But, you know, these silos will never meet in the middle. They all operate in a vertical way. In order to start solving some of the very complex problems that we have, you have to start cutting through the silos. You have to start looking at horizontal solutions where the very specialities, expertise are working together in solving these solutions. So in order to solve some of these problems, for example, in our society, in our economy, you will have to start bringing data, information from all different sort of areas, bring them together, analyze that, and based on that start looking at solutions. Some of it will be artificial intelligence. It might go even beyond us as individual people, you know, to put our brains in that. We need to combine brains of our society to actually start finding the solutions that are needed to address some of the problems that we as a society and as a business, as individuals are finding. So if you start looking at the role of M2M in all of that, you need to get information from diverse areas. Now let's take it very simple. You need weather information, you need traffic information, you need people movement, you need information about what's happening in a particular sort of environment. Bring that all together, and based on that you start predicting what the traffic will be, what the weather will be, what situations will be that are going to cause problems in, for example, in a city. Unless you actually start having that diverse number of data coming together and actually analyzing it all together, making that information, the outcome of that information available to everybody, you will not be able to solve all these problems in isolations. Take, for example, you cannot just solve a traffic problem if you don't know what the weather information is. If you don't know what the movements are in a city, what the events are, what the activities are. You cannot solve healthcare problems by singly looking at only your eyes, only your ears, only your heart, whatever. You need to have these complex arrangements of how the whole thing works together, and that then actually gives you that information. Now M2M provides these sensors. These sensors are picking up information. That information then obviously goes to big data centers, you know, big data centers that then actually get analyzed in real time and either automatically starts providing outcomes or gives information to decision makers who actually are going to make decisions based on that. So M2M becomes the infrastructure of the smart society, of the smart community, the smart city, etc. Yeah? Same applies to smart buildings. You know, wall A has to talk to wall B in order to find out where the sun is shining and how you organize the temperature in the building, etc. Yeah? All of these things are going to be very important in order to make our society smarter and solve some of the problems that we have, as I mentioned, in healthcare, education, environment, and things like that. So the M2M is a solution to a problem that is far deeper. It's not a matter of just throwing out a number of sensors, yeah, you as an organization will need to know what data is important. You as an organization will have to change the operations of the organizations to start taking that into account. Currently, what you see happening in healthcare, in energy, in retail, is that those people are saying, stop, stop, stop the world, yeah? We can stop it, we protect our business, we protect our own environment, we keep on running it as we've been doing it in the last 50 years, and all these bad things will go away automatically. Now, we now know, you know, if you listen to the retailers, if you listen to, you know, the telecommunications companies, the media companies, and many others, yeah, that that's not going to work. So it really is all about economic transformation, industry transformation, sector transformation, where they will have to start changing and start adopting themselves to this new area. So that requires leadership. So M2M on its own is not a solution. Yeah? M2M is a utility that organizations that want to actually transform themselves, yeah, that want to change, that need to take costs out of their business models, and that in the end is what it's all about. Doesn't matter if you talk about healthcare or you talk running your business, yeah? In order to move forward, it's taking cost out of existing business models, yeah? So that's the sort of huge problem that you're facing. Now, if you are operating from your traditional model, then you can save 5% cost, 10% cost, whatever, 15% cost. But you cannot save 60% cost or 70% cost. That's impossible. That totally requires an economic transformation, a total shift, reform of the way that you operate. As I mentioned, 50 to 80%, you know, that is just not something you can do easily in that area. 40% of GDP in healthcare, 2040. Now, I don't have to tell you that is absolutely not possible. But that is the CSRO has calculated that. That is if the linear way of running the healthcare budget, as we've been running it for the last 20 years, if you progress that into the future. Yeah? Now, obviously, this should be sign warning bells. Every single person in healthcare should start thinking about how to address that. Does that happen? No. They're all protecting their silos. When I was talking to the government 2008-9, I also met with Lindsay Tanner. Lindsay Tanner was the finance minister at that time. And I was talking about things like that. And then I was talking about the healthcare industry. And Lindsay Tanner bursted out in laughing. And he said, Paul, healthcare, there are 1,000 silos within healthcare. There's no way in the world that we can transform healthcare. So that's a massive task that we have. I mean, these specialists, you know, there are eye specialists and ear specialists and cancer specialists and this specialist. None of them will talk to each other. I hope that you all did hang out the flags last week when the healthcare organization mentioned that for the first time, 2013, yeah, doctors could send emails to each other. For the first time, the email systems of all proprietary email systems, yeah, of all these medical sectors, for the first time, were able to have an interoperability and talk to each other. You know, this is how far things are running behind. Forget about trying to tell them that they should use the internet or a standardized system. No, 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 no. My system is the one you have to do. If you want to be standardized, follow my system. Yeah? So it is that sort of an attitude, yeah, is happening in healthcare. But you know, I'm working with the energy companies. Same story, yeah? It's no different. They all want to find their own proprietary system. Go to Victoria, they just rolled out smart meters, yeah? Good job. 4 companies, 4 proprietary systems. So they can't talk to each other. There's no interoperability. You know, imagine that if you want to do data analysis, you need 4 different systems. Yeah? So the whole economy collapses around things like that. And this is again 2012, 2013, when these devices are rolled out. Nobody told them that they should standardize them and have one standard. No, and even worse, all of them are proprietary standards. Yeah? So that's still happening now, while at the same time we know that energy costs are rising 25% per year. Yeah? Why isn't somebody telling these energy companies that they should standardize and save costs, yeah, so that our price doesn't go up? And of course, the same applies to healthcare and many of the other areas. If we would know, if you would know what the electricity use in your house was, you could save, without switching off any light, 30 to 40% of your energy. But none of you know what your energy use in your house is. What's the television using, what's the fridge using, what's the pool pump using, what's this using, what's that. You have no information. You have no idea what's efficient and what's not efficient. By simply having that information and building in energy efficiency, you can save an enormous amount of money. Yeah? And that are simple things. That doesn't require a carbon tax, that doesn't require a mining tax. This just demands smart operations. Utilities getting their act together and somebody telling them to work together and find common solutions. So if you start looking at the, what the infrastructure that we have, what it can do. Now, obviously, if you start looking at smartphones and you look at the latest phones that are coming out, and most likely also the iPhone in September, you will start seeing that the smartphone will start having wearable applications. It will be able to start monitoring some health functions, some conditional functions, things like that. Now that's the start. Yeah? So within a couple of years' time, we will have linked to our smartphone a whole set of M2M things, yeah, in our clothes, on our body or whatever, yeah, and you can actually start using that. Now lots of people say I don't need that, but if you've got a heart problem and that sort of an application can help you, I'm sure that, you know, that in no time people with that sort of problems will have that sort of an application. If you are in sport and with a smartphone you can monitor while you are jogging or running or playing whatever, yeah, and monitor some of your performances and where you can improve, etc. No brainer. That sort of applications will automatically develop. Yeah? So you really start seeing that the smartphone and devices like that are going to be instrumental in further widening that whole sort of area of M2M. I think that these sort of companies are leading the way in a certain way, particularly if you start talking about big data and data centers and things like that, you know, that are companies that are so far ahead, yeah, of any Woolworths or any David Jones or any, you know, you name them, yeah. They have already systems in place. They know what people are doing, how to use that information and monetize that information in providing services, yeah. They are so far ahead of the rest of the pack that it will be nearly impossible for the traditional organizations who are still fighting against these new developments. They will find it very difficult to actually start competing with that sort of organizations in the future. So it really is very, very important to look what these companies are doing. Amazon just opened a data center in Sydney, you know, where they start looking, combining all of this data and do things with it. I mean, these companies are coming. They're no longer just in America. They're here, yeah, because they know that they're so far ahead and they can outcompete quite a few people. I was flabbergasted by the size of the Salesforce stand, you know, here next door, yeah? Unbelievable. That shows you, again, fully fits into this transformation, into reforming how you operate your business and how you can actually work together in an organization such as Salesforce, yeah? So that's a total new way, a total new concept of doing business. So that's the sort of things that we should keep an eye on, you know? I told my son, have a look there and talk to these people, because I'm 100% sure you pick up very interesting ideas by people who are involved in actually running their business in the way that they run that with Salesforce. Yeah? That's how we can learn and piggyback on some of these developments that are going to shape our economic future in the not too distant future. So one of the questions I quite often got is in relation to the national broadband network. Why do we need a national broadband network? You know, my speed is fast enough, yeah? It's unfortunately, but worldwide, not just in Australia, that the whole thing is about the plumbing of the internet and how much speed I need, yeah? If you talk about, you know, monitoring my heart, I don't give a damn about speed, but what I do want to be secure, yeah, absolutely no latency, yeah, all of that sort of stuff. That's what's important in a network, not the speed, yeah. So what you need is ubiquitous. Everybody needs to be connected, yeah, not just a happy few. You can't reform the healthcare system for 25% of the population who can afford a broadband connection. Impossible, yeah. You have to have ubiquitous. It needs to be affordable, yeah. Not, you know, if you go to America where they charge you $150 per month for a fiber connection, yes, you only get 10–20% penetration. Can't do it, yeah? Low latency, high speed, high capacity. You know, if you start talking about hundreds of millions of devices from companies such as Core Wireless, who are an M2M operator here behind us, yeah? If you start looking at that sort of applications, you need, and every application might use 1 kilobit, whatever. I don't mind, yeah? Count it all together, and you really start seeing that you need very, very high capacity in order to make this work. So you need that infrastructure. As I mentioned, you need to stop the silos and start creating horizontal structures, linking those devices together. And you know, the only way for us, because I don't think that the biggest thing on earth for most of us is I want to earn more money. I mean, in general terms, in the Western societies, people are earning a nice sum of money. Yes, everybody can earn a little bit more, but more people are getting more and more word, I like to maintain my lifestyle, yeah? I like to improve my lifestyle. That are key issues. And that we can only do that if you start taking cost out of the current sort of way. If you guys, yeah, in 10–20 years time need healthcare service, you want it to be affordable. And it can't be affordable if we do it in the linear way. We need to make these changes. And M2M can actually, is the critical infrastructure linked to data centers, linked to cloud computing, linked to national broadband networks, of course, all together. That's the critical sort of area in order to make that happen.